I wasn't supposed to see that email, but I did. And the second I did, something inside me went still. The kind of stillness you get when the world is too loud to hear. You ever had a moment that split your life in half? Before and after? That was mine. Monday mornings at Mercer Media are a ritual. Polished smiles, lukewarm coffee. The kind of optimism that smells like burnt espresso and old ambition. I'd been here 6 years, long enough to read a room before anyone speaks. Long enough to know who gets heard and who just gets nodded at. "Morning, Temecca," Kyle said, sliding past my desk without looking up from his phone. "Can you make sure the deck's cleaned up before the exec call? Greg wants it tighter." Sevens. "Sure thing," I said. My voice sounded professional, neutral, the way you learn to sound when your tone gets judged more than your work. The conference room lights hummed overhead. Greg, our VP, clicked through slides I'd built till 2 a.m. "Great job, team," he said. Everyone smiled. "And thanks to whoever put this deck together." No one said my name. They never do. I told myself it didn't matter. The check cleared. The title looked nice on LinkedIn. But that morning, when the meeting broke and people filed out, my Outlook chimed. Ding. Subject line. Project Rebrand, Workforce Realignment, Phase 1. It wasn't meant for me. At least, that's what I thought. My name sat in the CC line like an accident. 1 CC. That's all it took. I hovered over the email for a second, debating if opening it would make me complicit or just curious. But curiosity is survival in a place like this. I clicked. The first paragraph looked harmless. Corporate poetry about optimizing visual identity and enhancing demographic resonance. I've written those lines myself, but halfway down, I saw a table labeled Personnel Impact List. 23 names. Every single one. Black. My stomach tightened. The cursor blinked at me like a heartbeat. A comment bubble popped up in the thread. "Bens, we need a cleaner image, more diverse, but less urban." That word, urban. I've heard it weaponized my whole life. I scrolled further. Another line. Sevens. Let's start the adjustments quietly before Q3. No need to alarm morale. Sevens. I leaned back in my chair, the hum of the air conditioner suddenly deafening. Around me, laughter drifted from the break room, someone joking about fantasy football. Normal life. Ordinary noise. Inside, I was counting breaths. "Hey, Tamika." Sarah from HR popped her head in. "You got a minute later to talk schedules?" Sevens. "Sure," I managed. My voice sounded fine. My hands didn't. When she left, I stared at the screen again. Part of me wanted to hit delete, pretend I'd never seen it. But another part, the quiet, steady part that belonged to my mother, wouldn't let me. I remembered her coming home from the textile plant, eyes tired, hands cracked. They let her go after 15 years. Said she had an attitude problem. I was 12. I remember her whispering, "Baby, don't ever let them decide who you are." Sevens. So I saved the email, just in case. At lunch, the office buzzed about the upcoming rebrand. Posters of smiling models lined the hallway. None of them looked like me. Kyle leaned over my cubicle. "You hear they're doing new headshots? Whole fresh image thing." Sevens. "Yeah, I heard." Sevens. He grinned. "Maybe they'll finally fix that diversity photo wall. Half those people don't even work here anymore." He laughed. I didn't. Back at my desk, I opened the email again, slower this time. There was a reply thread, people talking freely, as if no one who mattered could possibly see. We can reposition departments with minimal disruption. Heavens. HR flagged optics. Make sure to keep at least one representative per team. Heavens. Good call. Token balance matters. Sevens. Token balance. I read it twice. That's what I was to them. A balance. Someone walked by humming. The smell of microwaved popcorn filled the air. And in that weird blend of normalcy and nausea, I realized something. I wasn't shocked. I was tired. Tired of smiling through it. Tired of pretending I didn't notice the jokes, the meetings I wasn't invited to, the way my ideas came back wearing someone else's name. I minimized the email. Checked the clock. 47 p.m. Still 4 hours till freedom. Greg called out, "Tamika, can you set up the off-site calendar invites?"
Sevens.
On it, I said, steady as ever. He smiled, satisfied. They never see the storm when you wear it well. When 5 o'clock hit, I stayed late. The office emptied, just me, the hum of computers, and the cleaning crew's cart squeaking down the hallway. I reopened the email thread and scrolled to the top. The sender line read, Mark Delaney, Chief Strategy Officer. My heart kicked. He never made mistakes like this. Not with comms this sensitive. I stared at that CC line again. My address. Perfectly spelled. Alphabetically, it didn't fit anywhere near the intended recipients. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was a test. I whispered the thought out loud. Maybe you wanted me to see. My voice sounded small, but the idea felt huge. I clicked print, slid the pages into a plain folder, and tucked it beneath the stack of expense reports on my shelf. Then I shut down my screen. Walking out, I passed the glass lobby where the company's values were etched in silver. Integrity. Innovation. Inclusion. I almost laughed. Outside, the sky had that Manhattan dusk glow, half orange, half steel. I stood there a moment, breathing in the city noise. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus in IT. Sevens. You still at the office? System acting weird. Good. Sevens. I typed back. Sevens. Yeah. Just thinking. Sevens. He sent a thumbs up emoji. I stared at it. The simplest symbol of connection in a world that runs on silence. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was a message. And maybe I was the one meant to answer it. Would you walk away or fight back? Tell me in the comments. Vince, they say silence is survival, but sometimes silence is strategy. That morning, I woke up before sunrise, heart still pounding from the night before. The folder with the printed emails sat on my kitchen counter like evidence in a crime I hadn't decided to report. Coffee went cold. I couldn't stop thinking about that CC. The way it felt deliberate. The way my name sat there like a whisper someone wanted me to hear. At 7:30, I walked into Mercer Media like nothing had changed. But everything had. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. The reflection in the chrome doors stared back at me, steady, composed, but my eyes told another story. The kind of focus you get when you've been underestimated too long. Morning, Tamika, said Sarah from HR, balancing her oat milk latte. Big week ahead, huh? Evans. Yeah, I smiled. Big week. Sevens. My smile was my armor. My calm was my weapon. I sat at my desk and opened Outlook. The thread was still there, unrecalled, untouched. which meant whoever sent it still didn't realize. That alone told me everything I needed to know about how invisible I'd become to them. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was curious. Curiosity is how you survive a place built on politeness and politics. I started tracking patterns. Who replied to who? Whose tone changed when certain names appeared? How the rebrand kept popping up in meeting invites with vague titles like alignment check and culture refresh. Sevens. They were careful, but not careful enough. Around 10 a.m. Greg called from his glass office. Tamika, can you come in for a sec? Sevens. His voice was syrupy, the kind people use when they want something but won't say what. Inside, sunlight poured across his desk, catching on the awards that spelled excellence in leadership. Close the door. Sevens. I did. So, he started, I need you to help with some scheduling. We've got a few confidential transitions coming up. Just executive logistics stuff. Sevens. Confidential transitions. The same phrase from the email. Sure, I said. Any particular departments? Sevens. He smiled. You'll see. Just make sure no one outside the loop gets wind of it. Sevens. Outside the loop? I almost laughed. When I left his office, I already knew what I was going to do. If they wanted quiet, I'd give them quiet. But I'd be listening, watching. At lunch, I sat alone, pretending to scroll Instagram while recording snippets of hallway conversations. People talk loud when they think you're background noise. Kyle joked with marketing. You know they're trimming the diversity fat again, right? He laughed. Gotta keep that global image clean. Sevens, someone replied. Don't say that too loud. Sevens, he shrugged. Please. They're not listening. Sevens, I pressed record on my phone. Just in case. That night, I stayed late again. Empty offices have a hum, machines breathing in the dark. I pulled up the internal Slack directory, found a channel I'd never noticed before. Brand Evolution. Locked. Executive access only. I opened a private chat to Marcus in IT. Hey, quick thing. You ever seen a Slack channel called Brand Evolution? Sevens. He replied fast. Sevens? Yeah. That's top tier. Don't touch it. Sevens. Why? Sevens. They monitor that one. It's where the real strategy lives. Sevens. I typed back. Sevens. Good to know. Sevens. Then I deleted the chat. I didn't need access. I just needed proximity. The next morning, I forwarded the Project Rebrand email chain to my personal drive, but not directly. I copied it into a draft. Saved. Never sent. Safe. Invisible. Every move had to look accidental, like a ghost leaving breadcrumbs. By Wednesday, HR started whispering. You could feel it, the shift in tone, the way people avoided eye contact. Something was happening. Sarah stopped by my desk again. Hey, can you meet with Mark later today? He's reviewing some staffing updates. Sevens. Mark. The man who'd sent the original email. Sure, I said. My hands didn't shake this time. The meeting was at 3 p.m. Top floor. The view from his office was all glass and sky. He gestured for me to sit. Appreciate you coming up, he said. We're doing some restructuring. Nothing that affects you directly. Sevens. He smiled. Too fast. Of course, I said. I might need your help coordinating a few transitions. Sensitive ones. You're good at being discreet. That word, discreet. I let it hang. He continued, I know how close you are to some of the team. People talk more freely around you. That's valuable. Sevens. My throat tightened. He was asking me to be the eyes and ears for a plan built to erase people who looked like me. I kept my face calm. I understand. Sevens. He nodded, pleased. That's what I like about you, Tameka. You don't make noise. You just get things done. Sevens. When the meeting ended, I walked straight to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. For a second, I didn't recognize myself. The silence I'd mastered for years was starting to sound like betrayal. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every email alert made my pulse jump. I sat at my kitchen table, the folder open again. My mother's words echoed. Don't let them decide who you are. I whispered, I won't. By Friday, the whispers in the office had turned into static. A list was circulating, rumors of who was on the way out. Every name on it was black. I started noticing who stopped meeting my eyes in the hallway, who smiled too tight. The walls were closing in. At 4:15, Marcus pinged me. You didn't hear this from me, but there's a server backup scheduled tonight. Might wipe some comms threads. Just FYI. Sevens. A chill ran down my spine. They were cleaning house. Digitally first. I typed back. Sevens? Thanks. Appreciate it. Then I opened a blank document and started writing. Not an email. Not a complaint. A record. Every date, every name, every phrase. My insurance policy. When the office cleared out, I slipped into Greg's office. His password was the same one he used for his travel logins, GLED 2020. People like him never expect you to know. I found the internal folder marked Rebrand Strategy. Inside, drafts of press releases, talking points, even severance templates, all signed off by Mark Delaney. I copied them onto a flash drive, slid it into my pocket. My heart raced, but my steps didn't. On the way out, the security guard nodded. Working late again, Ms. Harris? Sevens? Just finishing some reports. Sevens? Dedication? We need more folks like you. Sevens? Yeah, I said softly. We do. Sevens. That night, I stood by my window, the city lights blinking like signals. I realized something. The people running this place believe control meant silence. But real control is knowing what silence hides. I didn't know what my next move would be yet. Only that I wasn't going to let their story end with me erased from it. Maybe the email wasn't an accident. Maybe it was an invitation. And I was finally ready to RSVP. Be honest. What would you do if it was you sitting in that room? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear you. Sevens. They thought I didn't see. That I just keep smiling while they rearrange the floor plan of people's lives. But what they didn't know was, I'd already moved the pieces before they even set the board. That Monday, I walked into Mercer Media with a plan. Not rage. Strategy. Rage burns too fast. Strategy smolders. I knew how this company worked. Gossip was the bloodstream. Slack, email, hallway talk. All of it carried rumors like oxygen. So I gave them something to breathe. At 9:03, I sent a simple message to my work bestie, Keisha. She was in HR, smart, sharp, and just as tired of the culture realignment as I was. Hey girl, you heard the new restructuring might hit marketing first? Sevens, she replied in seconds. Sevens. What? Who told you that? Sevens? I typed. Someone in comm slipped. Not sure if it's real, though. It wasn't real, but it would be. By noon, the rumor had a pulse. I watched as faces turned anxious, whispers spread, and emails got shorter. Fear travels faster than truth. At 2 p.m., Greg asked to check in. His smile was tighter than last week's tie. Tameka, where'd you hear about marketing changes? Sevens. Oh, I didn't. Someone asked me. Thought you'd know. Sevens. He nodded, confused. I saw the flicker in his eyes, the kind that says something's leaking and I don't know where from. That night, I stayed late again. The flash drive from last week sat in my bag like a secret heartbeat. But I needed more than proof. I needed confession. So I made bait. I created a fake meeting calendar invite titled Rebrand. Team transition plan, draft discussion. I added Greg, Mark, and 2 others. Then, right before sending, I changed the visibility setting to public. For exactly 30 minutes. Long enough for someone to see. Short enough for plausible deniability. I deleted it right after. But not before I saw the system log. 2 external views. One of them from Mark's executive assistant. The other from an unlisted admin account. Someone high up was watching quietly. Perfect. The next day, I started playing the role they expected. Calm, efficient, compliant. Greg asked me to print a confidential doc. I printed 2. One for him. One for me. Later that afternoon, I went down to the break room. Kyle, the one who made that diversity fat joke, was there, talking too loud again. I walked up, smiled. Hey, Kyle. Quick question. You heard anything about transitions in your department? Sevens. He looked at me, surprised. No? Should I have? Sevens. Oh, maybe not. Just heard a few execs mentioning some changes. You know how it goes. Sevens. He laughed nervously. Damn, guess nobody's safe. Huh? Sevens. Guess not. Sevens. An hour later, Greg called me in again. You've been talking about restructuring. Sevens. Only what people already know. Sevens. He frowned, but said nothing. By Thursday, HR was in chaos. People were trying to confirm rumors that didn't exist. I watched them scramble, and every time they looked for answers, they accidentally revealed a little more truth. Information is currency. And that week, I became the richest woman in the building. Keisha called me after hours. Girl, what the hell is going on? People are freaking out. Sevens, exactly, I said softly. You didn't start this, did you? Sevens. Let's just say I'm letting people show themselves. Sevens. She went quiet. Then, Sevens, be careful, Tameka. You know how they get when they feel cornered. Sevens, so do I. Sevens. Friday morning came with rain, the kind that makes glass towers look like they're crying. I walked in, holding my coffee, pretending not to notice the glances. Greg stopped me by the elevator. Mark wants you in his office. Now. Sevens. His voice had that corporate calm, the kind that means trouble's coming wrapped in a smile. When I walked in, Mark was already standing. The air felt heavy. Tameka, I've been hearing your name a lot this week. Sevens. That's new, I said. He didn't laugh. You've been stirring things up. We can't have that right now. Sevens. Stirring? I just ask questions. Sevens. He leaned forward. Questions make people nervous. Nervous people talk. Talking causes leaks. You understand what I'm saying? Sevens. I understand perfectly, I said. Information moves fast. Maybe too fast. Sevens. You're too smart to play dumb. Sevens. And you're too confident to play clean. For a second, the silence between us was a war. He blinked first. Just keep your head down, Tameka. Sevens. Sure, I said, standing up. But you should know, the head's not the only thing that remembers. Sevens. His jaw tightened. I left before he could find words. That weekend, I printed copies of every file, timestamp, and chat log I'd gathered. Stored them in a waterproof envelope under my floorboard, just in case, because I knew this wasn't over. When I came back Monday, everything was too quiet. The kind of quiet that warns you something's already been decided. Greg's office was empty. His nameplate gone. Keisha texted me. Girl, Greg's out. Terminated. HR says it's performance. No one believes it. Sevens. Performance. Sure. I sat at my desk, opened my inbox, and there it was. A new message from Executive Ops Mercer Media. Subject line, confidential. Organizational alignment. Sevens. My pulse skipped. I opened it. Inside. Another thread. New names. New dates. The same plan. But this time, the cuts were bigger. And one of the names listed under Next Phase Review? Mine. I leaned back in my chair. Smiled. So that's how they wanted to play it. I whispered to myself, Sevens, then I guess it's showtime. Sevens, they say power doesn't change people. It reveals who they've always been. And this week, Mercer Media showed its true face. The morning after I saw my name on that email thread, I didn't flinch. I dressed slow. Black suit, gold studs, hair slicked back, the kind of calm that makes people nervous. My grandmother used to say, when they dig a hole for you, baby, make sure they fall in it first. So I brought the shovel. When I walked in, the office was humming with that fake calm. People typing fast but saying nothing. HR sent out a reaffirmation of company values memo, the corporate version of lighting a candle after a fire. I sat down, logged in, and opened my drafts folder. Every note, every timestamp, every hidden conversation was right where I left it. Then I started connecting the dots. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. I was building a map. At 9:45, I sent an email to myself, titled Lunch Order Follow-Up, attached a PDF. Anyone glancing at my screen would see a menu, but inside that file was a list. Project Rebrand. Internal participants. 10 names. All white. All safe. I uploaded it to a shared Slack workspace. Public. For 30 seconds. Just enough time for the system to flag it before I deleted it. Accidents happen. Especially when people underestimate you. By noon, whispers started. People were asking, did you see that weird file on Slack? No one admitted it, but enough had seen the title to know something wasn't clean. I had their attention now. At lunch, I walked down to the cafe across the street, the one with the bad coffee and good Wi-Fi. I opened my laptop and created a fake Slack user. Anonymous I. Then I joined the internal company server using a test invite I'd found weeks ago buried in an old onboarding packet. From there, I uploaded one screenshot, the original email, cropped just enough to show the subject line. Rebrand. Image reset. Phase 1 targets. Sevens. No names. Just enough to make people dig. Within an hour, I saw the pings flooding in on the anonymous channel. Sevens. Who posted that? Oh. Sevens. Is this real? Sevens. What does targets mean? Sevens. I leaned back, sipped my coffee, and whispered, wake up. Sevens. By 2 p.m. HR sent out an internal statement about unauthorized leaks and ongoing investigations. That was their tell. They wouldn't investigate what didn't exist. Then came the real move. I scheduled an auto-send email for 5:00 p.m. from my anonymous account to every team lead in the building. The subject line: if you think this doesn't affect you, you're wrong. Inside, one sentence: Sevens. Look closer at who's missing from your next team photo. Sevens, and attached, a folder named Draft Transition Files. Empty. But perception is everything. When that email dropped, the building went still. You could feel the panic ripple through the air, phones buzzing, managers whispering, Slack lighting up like a Christmas tree. Greg was gone, but Mark was still there. He called an emergency meeting at 5:30. Mandatory attendance, the message said. I didn't plan to speak. I planned to watch. We all sat in the conference room, the walls made of glass that trapped every nervous reflection. Mark stood at the head of the table, pale, sweating under the soft light. We're aware of some misinformation being spread internally, he began. I want to assure everyone there's no truth to these rumors. Sevens. Someone from finance spoke up. Then why are half our DEI hires not on the new org chart? Sevens. Silence. Mark's jaw tightened. Restructuring is part of growth. Sevens, I said softly. Growth for who? Sevens. Heads turned. He blinked. Excuse me? You said growth. I just want to know who's actually growing. Sevens. The room went still. I could feel every heartbeat in that silence. He forced a smile. Tameka, I know emotions are high. Sevens. No, I interrupted. They're not high. They're finally honest. Sevens. For a moment, he didn't know whether to scold me or listen. That hesitation. That's when I knew I had him. You want transparency? He said finally. Fine. We'll release internal notes tomorrow. Sevens. But he wouldn't. I knew it. And that's exactly why I scheduled the next drop. When the meeting ended, I stayed behind, pretending to clean up notes. Mark's laptop was still open. Reflexively, I glanced. His email was on screen. Draft folder open. Subject: Press narrative, draft for CEO approval. Ends. I pulled my phone out, took a quick photo. Not of the email, just the subject line and timestamp. Proof. He looked up, catching me just as I pocketed my phone. Everything all right? Sevens. Yeah, I smiled. Just making sure I remember what you promised. Sevens. That night, I uploaded the photo to the same hidden Slack account, this time, with a caption. Sevens, they're crafting their story. Don't let them write yours. Sevens. By midnight, the entire company knew there was a whistleblower. HR went into meltdown. IT began locking accounts. People started backing up their own files. The truth was alive now, and you can't delete oxygen. The next morning, I was invited to a meeting with HR and legal. Their smiles were corporate kind, soft words wrapped around sharp edges. We're concerned about some digital activity traced back to your credentials, said the woman in the navy suit. Digital activity? I asked. You mean my job? Sevens. These files were confidential. Sevens. So was that email about firing black employees, I said. Yet here we are. Sevens. Her eyes flicked up, surprise flashing before the mask returned. If you're implying wrongdoing. Sevens. I'm not implying anything. I'm proving it. Sevens. I place the flash drive on the table. Their faces shifted. What is this? Sevens. Insurance? I said. For both of us. Sevens. Ms. Harris, are you threatening the company? Sevens. No. I smiled. I'm protecting the truth. They told me they'd review my employment status and circle back. Classic stall. When I left that room, I didn't feel scared. I felt electric. Because I knew the trap was no longer mine. It was theirs. That afternoon, the anonymous Slack account posted one last message. Sevens, if they silence one of us, they silence all of us. But if we speak together, they can't mute the whole building. Sevens. And with that, the file dropped. The real one. Every internal message, email, timestamp. Clean, organized, undeniable. The company tried to lock it down, but in the age of screenshots, nothing stays buried. By 5 p.m. The hashtag You Rebrand Mercer was trending on X. Employees were posting stories. Former staffers were confirming patterns. The news cycle had begun. At 6:22, I got a text from Keisha. Girl, they know it was you. Sevens. I looked out the window. The city was glowing, alive. I texted back. Sevens. Good. Now they'll have to say my name. That night, my badge stopped working. I expected that. What I didn't expect was the message waiting on my personal email. Sevens. From CEO and Mercer Media. Commerce. Sevens. Subject. You've made your point. Let's talk. Sevens. I smiled. No, I whispered. Now you listen. Sevens. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. This was revelation. They say truth sets you free. What they don't tell you is how much it burns before it does. When Rebrand Mercer hit the news, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Reporters, former co-workers, strangers thanking me from burner accounts. I turned it off and sat in the dark, listening to the city breathe. My name was trending. My silence had finally broken, but the sound of it was louder than I'd imagined. By morning, Mercer Media looked like a crime scene. Cameras outside. Employees filing in through side doors. HR moving like ghosts. Inside, the air smelled like fear and coffee. Keisha called me before I could step inside. Girl, don't come in today. They're hunting names. Legal's in panic mode. Sevens. Then that's exactly why I'm coming, I said. I walked through the lobby, head high. Security hesitated, scanning my badge that still didn't work. I smiled. You can tell them I'm already here. Sevens. Upstairs. The top floor looked like a storm hit it. People whispering, phones ringing, Slack exploding. Screens flash news headlines. Sevens. Mercer Media accused of racial bias and cover-up. Sevens. Internal whistleblower leaks corporate diversity plan. Sevens. They'd tried to scrub my name from the leak, but people knew. They always do. Mark wasn't at his desk. Greg's office was still empty. The CEO's door was closed, blinds drawn. I sat at my desk like it was any other day. Logged into my account. Surprise. It worked again. They wanted me in the system now. That's how you keep someone close before you strike. At 9:20, an email came through. Sevens. From Mercer Media. Camille. Sevens. Subject. Private conversation. 10A. Sevens. Private conversation. That's what they call it when they don't want witnesses. I walked into that glass office right on time. The CEO, Elaine Mercer, tall, polished, with that smooth voice made for panels and PR. She gestured for me to sit. "You've caused quite a storm, Ms. Harris." Vince. "I didn't cause it," I said. "You did. I just opened the window." Sevens. She looked at me, not angry, not yet, just calculating. "Do you realize what you've done? The damage? The narrative you've unleashed?" Sevens. "Ain't that what this company does? Build narratives?" Sevens. She sighed. "You had options. You could have come to me directly." Sevens. "I did. Every time I showed up, every time I stayed late, every time I smiled through things I shouldn't have. That was me coming to you. You just weren't listening." Sevens. The pause between us stretched like glass. "You think this makes you a hero?" she asked. "No," I said quietly. "I think it makes me honest." Sevens. Her expression didn't change, but her hands tightened on the desk. "We can manage this, Tamika. Together. The board just needs a statement. You'll say it was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication about an internal diversity plan. You'll keep your severance. Your record stays clean." Sevens. "And everyone else?" Sevens. "We'll review those cases." Sevens. "Meaning you'll bury them." Sevens. "Meaning we'll move forward." Sevens. I leaned in. "You can't move forward on bones." Sevens. Her voice dropped, low and cold. "Careful, Miss Harris. The press will love you today, but when the storm passes, they'll move on. You'll still be standing here alone." Vanessa. "I've been standing alone for years. Difference is now. People can see me." Sevens. For a moment, she looked almost human. Then the mask snapped back. "We'll be in touch." When I left her office, I felt the whole building watching. The looks weren't pity anymore. They were respect and fear. At noon, the first wave hit. The company released a corporate apology, the kind written by lawyers, not humans. Words like transparency, accountability, diversity commitment. The internet tore it apart in seconds. By 1 p.m., a group of former Black employees started posting their own stories under the hashtag. Each one had the same pattern. Promotions denied, ideas stolen, layoffs rebranded. Sevens. It was bigger than me now. I didn't need to speak. They were speaking for themselves. At 3 p.m., Keisha sent a message. "They're blaming you for the leak." Sevens. "Let them," I wrote back. "Truth doesn't care who gets the credit." Sevens. That evening, the news showed footage of Mercer's headquarters. Protesters outside, holding signs. "We are not your image. Rebrand the truth." Vince. I stood across the street, blending into the crowd. A young intern I barely knew spotted me. She walked up, tears in her eyes. "You did this," she said. "You gave us permission to stop pretending." Sevens. I smiled. "No, baby. You gave yourself that." Sevens. She hugged me, then disappeared into the noise. The next morning, a new email hit my inbox, unsigned, untraceable. "You didn't start this fire, but you lit the match." Sevens. Attached was a file, internal minutes from the board meeting. It showed exactly what Elaine had promised to hide, how they'd planned the layoffs, how they'd tested optics for racial impact, how they'd laughed about minority fatigue. Sevens, it wasn't from an enemy. It was from someone inside. The cracks were spreading. That night, I sent the file to every major outlet, anonymously again. The next morning, the headlines changed. Sevens, Mercer CEO accused of concealment. Sevens, insiders confirm racist layoff strategy. Sevens, by afternoon, Elaine resigned. The board promised reform. A new direction, they said. But reform doesn't come from press releases. It comes from people who refuse to stay quiet. A week later, I packed up my desk. No badge, no escort. Just me and the truth walking out the same door they tried to close. Outside, the air felt clean. Cold, but clean. The protest signs were gone, but the echoes stayed. I looked up at the building one last time. You built your empire on silence, I whispered. But silence doesn't work when people start listening. Sevens. As I walked away, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Sevens. We're starting something new. Real equity. Real transparency. We want you to lead it. Sevens. I smiled. Maybe it wasn't freedom yet, but it was a beginning. They tried to erase me. Instead, I rewrote the story. Because sometimes, surviving isn't about keeping your head down. It's about knowing when to lift it high enough for everyone to see the light. If you've ever been overlooked or underpaid, this part's for you. And if you feel that, hit that. Sevens. They told me I'd changed the game. What they didn't tell me is what happens when the game starts changing you. After Mercer fell, I thought I could finally breathe. But freedom's funny like that. It never comes quiet. 1 week after the headlines cooled, the phone calls began. Invitations, panels, speeches, talk shows wanting the woman who took down Mercer Media. At first, I said no. I wanted peace, but peace felt like hiding, and hiding had never saved me before. The first stage light hit me in D. A diversity conference, packed ballroom, my name on a banner. Tameka Harris, the face of corporate truth. Sevens. I remember standing backstage, palms sweating, mic clipped to my blazer, looking out at a sea of faces waiting to be inspired. And all I could think was, they don't even know me. Sevens. When I spoke, the words came like fire. I talked about the system, the silence, the price of truth. The room snapped with fingers, people nodding, shouting, Amen. It felt good. It felt right. Then came the cameras, the interviews, the brands wanting partnerships, HR execs calling for consultations. My name turned into a hashtag, my story into a PowerPoint slide. Everywhere I went, someone wanted a quote, a selfie, a soundbite, but not the full story. They wanted a symbol, not a woman. You're such an inspiration, they'd say. You make us believe change is possible. Sevens. But some nights, I'd sit alone, scrolling through those same corporate accounts I'd once fought against, watching them use my image to polish their reputation. Proud to sponsor Black Voices in Leadership. Sevens. Partnering with Tameka Harris for Inclusive Excellence. Sevens. It made me sick and guilty all at once. Because I'd agreed. I'd signed those contracts. I'd smiled in those photos. One night, Keisha called. Girl, you see how they're using you? Sevens. I know. Sevens. You think they care about your message. You're their shield. Sevens. I'm trying to make something good out of it. Sevens. Baby, you can't clean blood with glitter. Her words hit like a slap, because she was right. A month later, I was invited to the White House, a roundtable on workplace equity reform. Cameras everywhere, smiles rehearsed, everyone shaking hands like they weren't all part of the same system that broke people like me. A congresswoman leaned close and whispered, "We're proud of you, Ms. Harris. Your proof progress is possible." Sevens. I smiled, but inside, I thought, progress or PR? After that event, I walked out into the rain, heels clicking on marble, and for the first time, I felt hollow. Like I'd built a mirror and forgot to see myself in it. That night, I went home and opened my inbox. Hundreds of messages. Some praise, some hate. But one email stood out. Subject line: "They're doing it again." Sevens. It was from an anonymous employee at another company. A familiar pattern. Code words. Layoffs labeled rebranding. The same script, just new actors. They attached a spreadsheet, names, races, job titles. Black, Hispanic, mostly women. I scrolled, my stomach twisting. And at the bottom, a note. "We tried to speak up. HR said you're already helping them fix diversity. Please tell me you're still one of us." Sevens. I froze. Because they were right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped fighting and started performing. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing Elaine's voice from that glass office. "We can manage this. Together." Sevens. I'd promised myself I'd never sit at that kind of table again. And yet, here I was, sitting at shinier ones, saying safer things. The next morning, I canceled everything. Every talk. Every sponsor. Every deal. My manager lost her mind. "Tameka, you're walking away from millions." Sevens. I'm walking back to myself. Sevens. Then I booked a one-way ticket to Chicago. The company from the email was based there. I walked in unannounced, just like the first time. Only now, I wasn't an assistant with a badge. I was a woman who'd already burned one empire down. The HR head recognized me instantly. "Ms. Harris, if you'd like to schedule a meeting..." Sevens. No meetings, just truth. Sevens. I pulled out the printouts, the emails, the patterns, all too familiar. "You see this?" I said. "It's Mercer all over again. You can rename racism, but it still speaks the same language." Sevens. She tried to smile. "We're working on internal training, like..." Sevens. Don't talk to me about training. Talk to me about accountability. Sevens. I left before she could reply. That afternoon, I posted the email and the data, same way I did before. No filters, no permission. Within hours. Copy and paste culture was trending. The same corporate PR scramble began. Statements, denials, apologies. But this time, I didn't stay behind the screen. I went live. No script, no sponsors, just me, a kitchen light, and the truth. They told me I was the face of change, I said. But change doesn't need a face. It needs a backbone. Sevens. I'm not your mascot. I'm not your proof. I'm not your diversity hire. I'm the reminder that you can't buy your way out of history. Sevens. The comments exploded. People cried, cheered, argued, but they listened. A week later, I started my own foundation, the Black Ledger, a platform where employees could anonymously report workplace discrimination. Within a month, we had thousands of submissions. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was ours. And for the first time, the spotlight didn't feel like heat. It felt like light. Because maybe that's what truth is. Not a war you win once, but a fight you keep showing up for. You tired? Keisha asked one night. Every day. Sevens. Then why keep going? Sevens. Because they still think we're tired enough to quit. Sevens. She laughed. That's the line, girl. That's the one. Sevens. Maybe it is. They made me a face, but I became a mirror. And what they see now, that's on them. They say when the dust settles, you finally see what's left standing. For me, it wasn't the building, the title, or the noise. It was the truth. Still standing. Quiet. Patient. Waiting for me to come home. It's been 2 years since Mercer. The city's different now. Or maybe I am. I walk past those towers, and they don't scare me anymore. Because I know what they're built on. And I know what I'm built of. Sometimes, people stop me on the street. You're that lady, they say. The one who exposed them. Sevens? I smile, shake my head. No, baby, I say. I'm the one who learned what exposure really means. Vince, because truth isn't about shining a light on others. It's about being brave enough to stand under it yourself. When the spotlight faded, I found the part of myself that wasn't performing anymore. I started small again. No stage, no script, just a laptop, a purpose, and a promise. To never let silence feel safe again. At the Black Ledger, I read hundreds of stories. Voices like mine, voices nothing like mine. Stories of people working twice as hard to earn half the piece. Stories of hands that built companies but never got credited for the bricks. Every one of them reminded me, change doesn't happen when the cameras roll. It happens in the break rooms, the late-night emails, the closed doors where someone decides to speak up, even when their voice shakes. I've met people who told me, Sevens, Tamika, I wish I had your courage. Sevens, and I always tell them the truth. Sevens, you do. You just don't believe it yet. Sevens, because courage isn't loud. It's not always a headline or a leak. Sometimes, it's just saying no when it's easier to say nothing. Sometimes, it's asking why, when everyone else looks away. See, what I've learned is, survival can make you quiet, but healing teaches you how to speak again. When I was that assistant sitting behind a glass desk, I thought power looked like who sat at the table. But now I know. Power is who builds the damn table in the first place. And for us, for my people, we've been building tables for generations, out of scraps, out of hope, out of faith. And we're still standing. I remember something my grandma used to say when I came home crying about school. Baby, don't let them tell you you're too much. The world just ain't caught up to your size yet. Sevens. Now, when I walk into rooms that once made me small, I don't shrink anymore. I let them adjust. Because that's what truth does. It doesn't wait to be invited. It walks in, pulls up a chair, and says, let's talk. Sevens. I used to think I wanted justice. Now I just want honesty. I want workplaces that don't need Black History Month to remember who keeps their lights on. I want leaders who know inclusion isn't a strategy, it's character. And I want us, the ones who've been told to keep it professional when we really meant keep it human, to know that professionalism was never meant to erase personality. You can wear your hair natural. You can speak with your rhythm. You can love your people out loud and still run the room. They told us we had to fit in to survive. But maybe the truth is, we were never meant to fit in. We were meant to stand out. Because the system only shifts when enough of us stop bending. And so I keep showing up. Not because I enjoy the fight, but because every time someone like me shows up, it reminds the world that we're not invisible. The truth isn't glamorous. It doesn't trend forever. But it echoes. And sometimes, that echo is enough to shake the walls. I've learned that winning doesn't always look like applause. Sometimes it looks like peace, like walking away knowing you didn't trade your soul for comfort. When people ask what I do differently, I tell them, nothing. Because every silence I broke, every risk I took, every tear I hid behind my smile, it all led me here. To this moment. To this voice. To this purpose. And maybe that's what legacy really is. Not the name they remember, but the truth they can't forget. So if you're listening to this, and you're sitting in some office where they call you diversity, but never equal, I see you. If you're the only one in the room who looks like you, sounds like you, fights like you, keep going. If they underestimate you, let them. If they silence you, write louder. If they push you out, remember, exits are just new entrances. And when the day comes, because it will, when someone calls you angry for demanding basic respect, just smile and say, Sevens, I'm not angry. I'm awake. Sevens, because that's the lesson. You can't teach change to people still sleeping through your struggle. Now, I don't work for corporations anymore. I work for people, for stories, for that kid sitting in HR, wondering if speaking up is worth it. Let me tell you, baby, it is. Because one email, one voice, one act of courage, it can start a fire they can't put out. And if that fire burns down the lies, let it burn. Because what grows in its place, that's freedom. So here's my ask, my CTA, if you will. Not as a hero, not as some corporate cautionary tale, but as a sister, a coworker, a woman who learned the hard way that silence is too expensive. 7C, speak. Even when your voice shakes, show up. Even when they expect you to fade, support each other. Because no revolution survives without community. And when the system tries to turn you into a story, you look them in the eye and say, Sevens, I'm not your story. I'm the author. Sevens. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. Writers of our own freedom. Architects of our truth. Carriers of a light too old, too sacred, too stubborn to ever go out. So yeah, maybe they saw an email they weren't supposed to see, but maybe, just maybe, they needed to. Because the truth was never meant to hide. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this story. If it spoke to you, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more stories that heal, inspire, and remind us who we are.